I love the voice of angels. As they sing out in Selma, there was a scene where Dr. King called Mahalia Jackson and said, "I just need to hear the voice." And I thank God that week in and week out we have access to, we are granted, we are blessed by, we are presented with the voices of angels. And they give to us so freely. They give to us, I don't even think that's the overflow. I think they're giving that to us from the depths of their souls. And it, in my mind, it reaches all the way up to heaven, and I mean the heaven that's right in my soul. Thank you, Temple Ensemble, for being a blessing to this community of faith, for carrying us through, for providing the soundtrack to our overcoming. For when we cannot remember a word or a principle or a truth, we can hear you singing, "I lift my hands, knowing that my help comes from you." It doesn't, I know everybody has a favorite selection. Listen, don't let me get off. I've got some good, I guess I say all of that to say I love you and I could celebrate you each and every day. God bless you. Mr. Martin Wood, stand up, man. Let us love you. Let us love you. Musicians, give it up for our musicians. Monte, I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling his business. I'm gonna tell it anyway. I guess now in this way I am like Reverend Carey. I can't hardly keep nothing. Monte and his mom is here. Mom, are you still here? She's gone. Monte's mom. I'm not. Okay. But he's in L.A. His sister just had a child, his mother's first granddaughter. So that's good things happening in the life of our people. So on last week, we began our Champions series, and we had an opportunity to look at and explore the victory patterns of the great one, the one who resurrected one of the greatest champions of all time, Jesus the Christ. But on today, I want to explore another of my favorite champions who, though less celebrated, is no less victorious. Her story and experience is presented in each of the synoptic gospels. And in each of these gospels, she is simply known by 4 characteristics. A characteristic is a distinguishing trait, quality, or property. And if you are not careful or if you are not mindful, you can be attached a characteristic, but the characteristic may not truly reflect the character of God that exists in you. In the synoptic gospels, the characteristics that she is presented through is that she is a woman. She has been suffering. Her suffering is from hemorrhaging, and she has been working through this experience for 12 years. She is a woman. She has been suffering. Her suffering is from hemorrhaging, and she's been having this hemorrhaging for 12 years. Now, what I also like about her is that irrespective of what I am suffering through, I can identify in her experience some similarities. Though I am not woman or female, I certainly do recognize that in my feeling nature, there is an opportunity for me to both suffer and overcome. And if I understand her story, I can find out, just as Charles Fillmore said, is that when the feeling nature connects to the Christ, sometimes we think it's all about how we think. But sometimes it has nothing to do with how you think, but rather how you feel. And if you understand the patterns of how it is you can align your feeling nature with your Christ presence, then you can make your overcoming irrespective of what you think. You should write that down. Her suffering is an indication of what she has been going through. And much like you and I, her going through is a part of her journey. But we know that the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. I appreciate that the gospel writers helps us to see what it is she's challenged with. So when they say that she is hemorrhaging or that she is having an issue of blood, I can appreciate being able to identify it, because sometimes you can't fix what you won't face. And so for those of us who find ourselves at the level of the law where we have not yet been able to connect to the truth, if you can at least connect to the realization that the thing that's challenging you cannot stop you, you as the champion that you are can be victorious. And I can appreciate that she has been suffering from hemorrhaging for 12 years. That's a mighty long time. But one of the things that I also recognize about that period of 12 years is that it's complete. And so when it's over, that's no longer the time to keep celebrating what you have been through. Some of us tell the story over and over and over again. Did I tell you? Or have I told you about what they did to me? Did I show you the incision for where they took the bunion? Can I share with you the challenges that I'm going through? I haven't rehearsed it enough. I need somebody to rehearse it with me. But when it's over, it's over. But when we look at this woman, there are some things that we must understand about her suffering. And if we can get an understanding, we can apply them to our own patterns of overcoming as champions. Are you with me? Understand that while she was suffering with this issue of blood, the length of time indicates that there was a great deal of suffering as well as a period of completion. With her particular issue, it was socially debilitating, and it placed her in a constant state of ritual uncleanness. According to the Levitical law, such an experience would make her permanently ritually impure and restrict her from access to conventional society. Now, for you, that might look like this. If you came of age with a certain level of education, or if you grew up on a certain side of town, you might find that the conventional benefits of education are not as available to you just based upon where you've come from. If you are a small business owner and your track record is not quite like it needs to be, conventional society says there ought to be certain things that you have in place before you can be accepted into the system. See, your issue might not have anything to do with whether or not you're hemorrhaging. Your issue might be a relationship with your significant other, and all you want to do is get along. But every time you get together, you're hemorrhaging hurt feelings. Every time you see one another, you start to hemorrhage an upset stomach. Every time you're in the same space, there's something pulling you apart from that which you want to be a part of. It just depends on what your issue is. Everybody has an issue. Everybody has an issue. Tell your neighbor, everybody has an issue. And your issue can make you socially unacceptable. I don't know if you're here, boy. I remember when my son, a student at HF, and I was encouraging him to go into the debate club. He's a really bright young man, very articulate. And I said, man, you should go into debate. You've got the good skills for it. He's always arguing with anybody who'll come into his space. He loves to argue. If I say Michael Jordan is the greatest, he's going to come right back and say, no, it's LeBron James. When LeBron James leaves the Heat, he doesn't like him anymore. Now he's ready to be on. So he's ready to argue. He's always ready to argue. I say, man, you should be on the debate team. He said, man, I can't be on the debate team. That's social suicide. So there is this realization that if you are attached to certain experiences, you are an outcast. Even in church, even in church, even in church, even in a church like this. Don't clap so fast. Even in a church like this, as you work through your experience to stay in a high state of consciousness. And sometimes stuff happens and you find yourself working through an experience, and it might be described, or the characteristics that is put to that experience might be a drop in consciousness. And because you've had a drop in consciousness, you neglect to show up at the very space where you need to be whenever you find yourself having a drop in consciousness. When the rubber hits the road, or when the challenge meets you, that's not the time to stop coming to church. When your relationship is fraying at the ends, that's not the time to stop coming to church. That's the time to push through your doubt. That's the time to push through your consternation. That's the time to push through what other people think. Nobody cares what somebody else thinks about you. That's the time to keep on moving and get in a place like this where the walls and carpet and the chairs are filled with the whole presence of God and is healing you even at this moment. Don't get out of sync with this truth when the road gets rocky. What I like about this woman is that she didn't care what you thought about her. That's my girl. As she's sitting out on the fringes of society, as the people are walking by judging, as they always do, people can't help but judge. That's what people do. But understand that whenever an individual judges, they're not judging you, they're only judging their level of understanding. If they're not you, they can't really understand you, so they can't judge you. They can only look at you through the lens of their consciousness and attempt to project onto you who they are. So what I appreciate about her is as the crowd is rumbling and as she hears that the master teacher is passing by, she gets in her mind that she is sick and tired of being sick and tired. She has had enough of this issue. That's my girl. She has gotten word that Jesus is coming through. The wind has blown her way and she caught the scent. Something says that the Christ is coming through. So now she is sitting on the edges because she can't be in the mix. If she's a social outcast, she can't be in the mix. If she's a social outcast, she can't be at the hot spot. If she's a social outcast, she can't have the good job. If she's a social outcast, she can't fight for her home when it's in foreclosure. But here's what you have to understand. The faith thinker does not pay attention to what they say. They told you they can't accept your application, put it in again. They said you don't qualify for the loan, go someplace else. He said he's leaving, help him pack his stuff. Man, listen. Man, listen. I can hear my girl singing. I can hear her singing. I can hear her singing. Sing it for me, B. To the left, to the left. Everything you own in a box, to the left. To the left, to the left. Don't you ever, for a second, get to thinking that you're irreplaceable. Now, stay with me now, because I'm talking in context of your issue. Yeah, I'm talking about your issue. Whatever your issue is, it has taken up residence for some time. See, when we talk about 12 years, that's a long time to be conditioned about anything. And if it is in the feeling nature, then the feeling nature is also the subjective nature. Am I right about that? And if it is in the subjective nature, we also understand that our habits are found and housed in our feeling nature. So when you start singing that beat to it, I'm talking Beyonce. Stay with me, saints. When you start saying to it, to the left, every sense of limitation to the left, every sense of ineffectiveness to the left, every sense of inadequacy to the left, when you tell it to get to the left because it is a habit, it says, I am not leaving easily. So you have to be prepared, like my girl, to take initiative and push through your habits when your habits say, I am not going anywhere, I am here by right of consciousness. Because your subconscious nature can't help but reflect back to you that which you have put into it. Yes. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Thank God that you have the capacity to receive into your subconscious nature and have that thing impressed and then express out into your life. That is good news. But like my girl, you can't become limited. You can't accept. You must have some determination. You must have some tenacity. You can't be the kind of person who prays and then hope that God will do the rest. Because Christ can be passing by. And if you are sitting down on your duster, hoping that Christ awareness will catch a glimpse of what you're going through. See, that's our challenge. We hope that somebody who knows better will pay attention to us. We hope that somebody who is somewhere will call our name. But like this woman, you've got to be prepared to take initiative for your healing when the Christ passes by. Now here, watch this now, because Jesus was not really on her agenda, or she was not on his agenda for that day. It just so happened, say just so happened. It just so happened that Jesus was really only passing through. He had a whole nother agenda. He was preparing to go and save Jairus' daughter. That's what he was on. That was his mission. That's what he was on that particular moment. But just because of somebody, you're not on their agenda, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be on yours. You see, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this boo thing. I'm on this boo thing. What's a boo thing? A boo thing is a fine or attractive lady or man who does not know that you are supposed to be on their agenda. That's a boo thing. They just haven't gotten the memo yet. Their consciousness just has not opened up to the greatness of what you bring into their experience. You don't need them to make you whole. They need you so that they can come up to where it is they're supposed to be. As Jesus is passing through, as he's passing through, she pushes through. This is my girl. I appreciate you. I don't care if they can't call you anything but woman. Because if you're not careful, it will be a woman that builds. If you're not careful, it will be a woman that leads. If you're not careful, it will be a woman that shifts the consciousness and helps us to see that there is a way out of no way. If you're not careful, it will be a woman. And here is what I love about her. She is not going to let your hang-ups keep her from pushing through the crowd. There's something about this woman, because even when she touches, I believe it's Mark in Mark's gospel, either Mark or Luke in their gospel, when they talk about the touch, Jesus is put on notice that someone has touched him. Now watch this. If you know anything about Jesus, when he shows up, lots of people show up around him. And when he shows up and lots of people show up around him, there is always the crowd pushing and crushing onto his presence. You can't be around that many people and not have someone touch you consistently. So all kind of folks are touching him. But when you know who you are and whose you are, and when you have a strategy for getting your blessing, when you touch the Christ has to stop and take notice and say, wait a minute, somebody who knows something has touched me. So my question to you is this: when you touch the Christ, do you know what you're touching, and do you know why you're touching? Or are you just touching because they said touch the hem? There is a difference in the conscious touch. If you know what is to come to you, if you have, here it is, expectation attached to your touch. So now, as you're working in your soul consciousness, do you expect to be blessed when you reach out to touch, or are you just touching stuff? I'm just gonna touch this. I'm gonna touch that and see if something changes. I'm gonna read this book and see if it changes. I'm gonna listen to this CD and see if it changes. You're just touching, but you're not touching with intention. You can't touch without intention. When you touch, you want to be able to connect to the truth. And so Charles Fillmore says that the subconscious nature is the seat of your overcoming. Your subconscious nature is the seat of your overcoming. What are you putting into your subconscious nature? You can't afford to be studying nonsense and hope that you will have the overcoming of a champion. Champions operate differently. Champions don't do average. Champions don't do okay. Champions don't do the standard. Champions don't do the norm. Champions continue to push, press, and express. That's why you have to have tenacity. That's why you have to have determination. You can't be apathetic about your overcoming. You can sit there if you want to and wait for somebody else to realize you need to be healed. You can sit there if you want to and hope that somebody else will recognize that you ought to be prospered. Champions don't wait. Champions make things happen. What's your strategy for making something happen? I like her. She took initiative. She didn't wait. It didn't matter if she wasn't supposed to be there. It didn't matter if people thought she was socially unacceptable. It didn't matter if she was too old. It didn't matter if she was too young. It didn't matter if she was too black. It doesn't matter if she's too white. It doesn't matter that she was woman. It doesn't matter if she is man. Here is what matters. What she was suffering through was transformed. Are you going to keep suffering? Or are you going to get about your transformation? Let's go. So here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. Like the suffering woman, I want you to take initiative. Take initiative. Take initiative. Be daring. Understand that because she was a social outcast, the risk that she took, 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 the risk that she took. There was a risk attached to touching Jesus. The risk that she took. What risk are you going to take? Or are you going to stay in Safeville? There is a risk in changing. There is a risk in the unknown. There is a risk in uncertainty. There's a risk attached to being uncomfortable. But I got news for you. If you don't change, then your suffering will stay the same. There is a risk. You got to be willing to take that risk. Your business is not going to be successful if you don't take risks. Yeah. That just happened. Cat's out the bag. Your relationship's not going to be successful if you don't take risks. Your education is not going to be successful if you don't take risks. Here is the safe thing. None of my friends study. We all hang out late at night. It's risky to say, no, G, I'm not going to this party. Let me know how it was. That's risky. Yeah? Take a risk. Next, remember that the primary cause of suffering is what? Remember that the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. Remember that the secondary cause of suffering is wrong thinking, which causes us to believe that we are separate. What I love about her touch and her willingness to take the initiative and her daringness and her ability to take the risk is that it reconnected her in consciousness to the Christ, which she was never separated from to begin with. So when you're going through whatever it is you're going through as a champion, always go at it with the end in mind. Just because you're not there yet doesn't mean that you won't get there. Just because it hasn't popped yet don't mean that you're not going to break. Just because nobody will sign you does not mean that you are not supposed to be a superstar. I don't know who that's for, but if you will open your mind and open your heart, you can receive what's yours. Develop your strategy. Don't run away from adversity. You can change your wrong beliefs. You can change your conditions. Let a part of your strategy be a single focused concentration. Sometimes we can't get it because we're pulled in too many parts, attempting too many techniques. But what I love about her, this is my girl, the only thing she's trying to do is touch him. That's all she's trying to do. What's it going to take for me to push through the crowd so that I can touch the Christ? Last, when it's over, let it be over. When it's over, let it be over. Remember that the remedy for suffering is to realize that we are spiritual beings. When it's over, let it be over. Remember to watch every thought and base every thought, feeling, and word on truth. Remember that when it's over, it's over. And your victory, your overcoming, your demonstration as a champion is won first in your soul. Before she ever got to the square, before she ever pushed through the crowd, before she ever faced the scrutiny of people saying she ain't supposed to be there, she had made up in her mind that she was going to get her victory that day. In her soul, it was so. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about your winning. It's not over until you win. God bless you.